Scholastic Audio presents Animorphs, Megamorphs Book 4, Back to Before, by K.A. Applegate. Read by McLeod Andrews, Michael Crouch, Ramon Diocampo, Emily Ellett, Cece Aisha Johnson, and Adam Verner. Chapter 1. Jake. Help me! I tried to get up. There was a body lying on me. Hork-Bajir. His wrist blade was jammed against my side. I tried to lift up with all 4 legs, lift the dead thing off me, but I only had 3 legs. My left hind leg lay across the bright-lit floor, a curiosity, a macabre relic. Tiger's paw. I tried to slide. That was better. The floor was wood, highly polished, slick with blood, animal, alien, human. I reached out with my 2 front paws, extended the claws, and dug them into the wood. They didn't catch at first, but then my right paw chewed wood and I gained traction. A voice said, "Help! Please help me!" I dragged myself slowly, carefully, gingerly out from beneath the bladed alien. The pain in the missing leg was intense. Don't let anyone ever tell you animals don't feel pain. I've been a lot of animals. Mostly they feel pain. "Jake? Jake?" It was Cassie. "Yeah, I'm here." With a lurch, I was free of the weight pressing me down. I rose, shaky on 3 legs, looked around through the tiger's eyes. It was a fabric cutting room, a design house. You know, dresses no one actually wears. The kind of stuff you see on Style with Elsa Clench as you're flipping channels. Fashion? Strange front organization for the Yerks. Why? There were hugely wide, long tables covered in cloth. One tilted up weirdly. One leg had been broken off entirely. Kind of like me. There were big rolls of patterned fabrics on that end that weighed the table down and made it balance, like a seesaw, not up, not down. Overhead, there were banks of brilliant fluorescent lights, splashes of stylish neon on the bare brick walls. Bodies everywhere. Blood. Slashes of it. "Cassie?" I saw the wolf limp out from behind an overturned cart. She was alive. I felt a wave of relief. The last I'd seen of Cassie, she was in trouble. In the distance, out through the big doors, down the dark hallway, I heard the hoarse vocals of a grizzly bear. Rachel. Not fighting, not anymore, just raging. Raging, roaring with the frustration of a mad beast looking for fresh victims and finding none. Marco was already demorphed. A kid. My age. But he looked so young to me. My best friend. He'd demorphed to human because the alternative was bleeding to death from the gash across his gorilla throat. Demorphed to human. All better. No pain. "I'm cold. I'm cold. Help me," the voice called. "Make sure he can't see you," I warned Marco. Rachel came lumbering back into the room, 800 pounds of shaggy brown fur and railroad spike claws and a vaguely quizzical grin that hid sharp canines. "Where's Tobias?" I didn't answer. I didn't know the answer. Rachel began shoving and lifting Hork-Bajir bodies. She found Tobias, a crumpled hawk. He was breathing. "Tobias, morph!" I heard the clop-clop of delicate hooves. Axe was behind me. As alien as any of the dead lying around us. A dainty centaur. The body of a blue deer or antelope, with an upper body not so different from humans. A head that was very different, mouthless, with 2 extra eyes perched atop movable stalks. His long, dangerous tail was wet with gore. We'd been in many fights. This one was bad. This one would invade my sleep and wake me sweating and crying. "Tobias, listen to me. Go to human." "Someone so cold. Help." Cassie trotted over to Rachel. She demorphed swiftly. So good to see her, healthy, whole, beautiful in my eyes. "He's okay," Cassie assured Rachel. "I think he's just stunned." As if to prove her right, Tobias ruffled a wing and said, "Hey, what?" Oh, oh, I'm alive. More or less, Rachel growled. That was a crazy thing to do, you idiot. You dive bomb a Hork-Bajir? You know, he said, thinking back now, it was crazy. Idiot? Rachel said. But she managed to put an awful lot of affection into that one insult. Tobias had saved her life, nearly ending his own. I limped over to the one injured human in the room, a human controller, an enemy. A man, maybe 20 years old, a human with an alien slug in his head. Help me, he said to the tiger's face looming above him. I'm cold. Help me. He was cut. Badly. It was a Hork-Bajir slash. Friendly fire, that's what it's called when one of your own troops accidentally injures you, kills you. Hork-Bajir, in the middle of violence, slashed one of their comrades. Leave him, Yerk, I said. Let him alone at last. Get out of his head. Let him do this last thing as a free human being. His face was pale, white, waxy like a white candle. Someone had smashed his head, mangled his ears. I recognized the marks of a tiger's claw. His brown eyes stared up at me. I can't get out, the Yerk inside his head said to me. The ears are blocked. Can't get out. I'm trapped. We have to get out of here, Axe said. They may send reinforcements. I'm cold, the human controller said. Just give me a blanket or... Prince Jake, Axe prodded. I'm scared. Does that make you happy, Andalite? The dying man said. To the Yerks, we were Andalites. The morphing technology is Andalite science, far beyond anything a human was yet capable of. So to them, we were Andalites, a misunderstanding we deliberately fostered. Axe was the only true Andalite in our group. No, it doesn't make me happy, I said. The pain. Can't you help me? Cold. Help me. Come on, Jake. It was Marco. He'd remorphed. To Osprey this time. We needed to escape. The air was our surest way out. Grow wings and fly. Fly and put it all behind us. Pretty soon we'd be joking, laughing, trying anything that would make us forget what we'd seen. What we'd done. Help! Let's go, I said. I demorphed, out of sight of the doomed controller. Then I grew falcon's wings and flew out through a window Rachel opened with her fist. Chapter 2. Jake. My name is Jake. I live in a normal American city, in a normal American state. I love my mom and my dad. I even love my big brother, Tom. I like basketball and hate math and get a little down when it rains for more than one day. I think those little Audi TTs are cool, but if I had the money and was old enough, I'd probably drive a Jeep. I live on burgers and fries and have never voluntarily consumed a Brussels sprout. My room is a mess. My homework is late. My class notes are so disorganized they cannot be read by anyone except Marco, who has been living off my notes for 5 years or more, and sometimes has to interpret them for me. I cried the day Michael Jordan retired, and I can still tell you what time it was, what day, week, month, hour, minute, and second, what I was wearing, and what I was eating when Mark McGuire banged his record homer. I'm a kid with a dog and parents and teachers and friends. Just a kid. I have these nightmares. Sometimes I'm a termite, trapped inside a piece of wood, can't get out and the clock is ticking. Tick-tock, can't escape. Wooden walls and blackness all around me, pressing me tight. Sometimes I'm falling, flying, and my wings just aren't there, and I'm a mile up in the sky, falling, and thinking, I can't fly! Sometimes still, even now, I see the dark red eye of Krayak, and feel his malice reaching for me all across the millions of light years. But the worst dream is just me and Cassie, and we're standing in the forest somewhere. She's outlined in light. You know, like there's a bright light hidden behind her, and it's almost like she's shining. And there's this cave, and I'm telling her to go in. And she's looking at me with trust in her eyes, looking at me and loving me and believing in me and trusting me, and I'm telling her to go into the cave. I'm the leader of the Animorphs. I don't know how that happened. It was some doom pronounced by Marco. Why me? Because, Marco said. Because it has to be. We were 5 kids taking a shortcut home from the mall at night. There was a ship. There was an alien. There was the destructive worm of knowledge. You are not alone. You are not safe. Nothing is what it seems. No one is who they seem to be. The knowledge of betrayal and terror. The awareness of evil. And then, the power. The power made us responsible, see? Without the power, the knowledge would have just been a worm of fear eating up our insides. Bad enough. But it was the power that turned fear into obligation, that laid the weight on our unready shoulders. We could become any animal we touched, the Andalite told us. Power enough to win? No. Power enough to fight? Ah, yes. Just enough, little Jake. Here is just enough power to imprison you in a cage of duty, to make you fight. Help me. I'm cold. Another battle. Another horror. Couldn't anything make it end? Was there no way out? Was I trapped, fighting till one by one my friends died or went nuts? I lay on my bed, stared up at the ceiling. Help me. Please. I'm cold. Into the cave. Cassie. All for what? For nothing. To delay the Yerks, but never to win. And someday to lose. Was there no way out?
There's always a way out, Jake the Mighty,
a voice said.
My Lord Krayak holds out his omnipotent hand to you, Jake the Yerk Killer. Jake the Elemist's tool.
I sat up. I knew the voice. The Drode stood by my desk. It wasn't large. It perched forward like one of those small dinosaurs. It had mean, smart eyes and a humanoid head. It was wrinkled, dark green or purple maybe. So dark it was almost black. The mocking mouth was lined with green. The Drode was Krayak's creature, his emissary, his tool. Krayak was evil. A power so vast, so complete, that only the Elemist could keep him in check. A balance of terror, evil and good checking each other, limiting each other, making deals that affected the survival of entire solar systems. Go away, I said to the Drode.
But you called me.
Go back to Krayak. Leave me alone. The Drode smiled. He got up and moved closer. Closer till his face was only inches from my own.
There is a way out,
the Drode whispered.
Say the word, and it never was, Jake. Say the word, Jake, and you never walked through the construction site. Say the word, and you know nothing. No weight on your shoulders. Say the word.
Go away, I said through gritted teeth.
How long till your cousin Rachel loses her grip? You know the darkness is growing inside her. How long till Tobias dies? A bird! A bird! How can he ever be happy? How long till Marco is forced to destroy his own controller mother? Will he survive that, do you think? How long, Jake, till you kill Tom? Then what dreams will come? Jake the Yerk Killer.
Get out of here. Crawl back under your rock.
It will happen, Jake. You know that. The cave. The day will come. You know what the cave is, Jake. You know what it means, that dark cave. You know that death is within. When she dies, when Cassie dies, it will be at your word, Jake.
I covered my face with my hands.
My master Krayak offers you an escape. In his compassion, great Krayak has struck a deal with that meddling nitwit Elemist. Krayak would free you, Jake. Krayak would free you all. All will be as it would have been if you had simply taken a different path home.
I saw that moment again, at the mall, deciding whether to take the safe, well-lit, sensible way home, or the route that would take us through the construction site and to a meeting that would change everything. Undo it. Undo it all. No more war. No more pain and fear and guilt.
Just one word, Jake,
the Drode whispered.
No, two, I think. One must not sacrifice good manners. 2 words and it never was. 2 words and you know nothing, have no power, no responsibility.
What words?
One is Krayak. The other is please.
I wanted to say no. I wanted to say no. I wanted...
Chapter 3. Cassie, Day 1. We hooked up at the mall. I was there with Rachel. Rachel is my best friend. No one knows why, least of all either of us. We could not possibly be more different. Here are Rachel's priorities in order of importance: shopping and gymnastics. Me, I'm into animals. Rachel is every cover girl from every Mademoiselle or 17 you've ever seen. Tall, thin blonde hair and flawless complexion, and approximately 400 shiny white teeth. To make matters worse, she can't just be written off as another fashion bimbo. She's not mean. She's not a snob. She is not a member of any clique. She is her own one-girl clique. That's the power she has, to be everyone's vision of physical and intellectual perfection and not to care. Sometimes I wonder where she gets it from. Not the hair, or the clothing, or even her eerie ability to never be messy, dirty, or wet. I wonder where she gets the indifference. I wonder how she can have every boy in school throwing himself in her path and be indifferent. Not that she's humble. No, you wouldn't call her humble. She knows she's special. But she's impatient with the whole idea of being popular or whatever. I get the feeling with Rachel that she's waiting, impatient, looking for something more, moving through life in search of a very different destiny. Her sports are gymnastics and shopping. She knows she'll never be a great gymnast. She's already about twice as tall as the average gymnast. That part of her interests me, but not as much as her shopping. See, it's not about the stuff with her. It's hunting. I could never be friends with someone who went out and hunted animals. Sorry, but people who went to shoot deer are not going to be my friends. But when I'm with Rachel at the mall, I see the excitement in hunting, the combination of knowledge and instinct, and the thrill of stalking and closing in for the kill. The girl makes the pursuit of a 40% off sweater in just the right size and just the right color seem like a safari to track down a man-eating lion. 25% off at Express. That's fine, she said. But say basic sweater, better mix of fabrics, 40% off its structure. Plus, the point is, this sweater goes with the jeans on sale at the Gap, or the jeans on sale at the department store, and the express sweater only goes with the Gap jeans. I know I'm going to be sorry I asked this, I said. But how can one sweater that is almost identical to another sweater not go with a pair of basically identical jeans? Rachel gave me the look of incredulity and confusion. Cassie, you know I love you. But did you just get in from Uzbekistan? She asked. Yes, Rachel. I just flew in from Uzbekistan. Shape, color, cut, waistline. She shook her head in mock pity. How do you expect to get through life without an appreciation of what goes with what? I expect life will just be one long struggle. Rachel laughed. No one was more amused by her obsession with shopping than she was. Like I said, Rachel was waiting for something else. She didn't know what. I sure didn't. Don't look, I hissed. It's Jake. I can't look at my cousin? You can look, just don't look. That's all I'm saying. You mean don't look at him in a way that will somehow convey to him that you are hot for him, that you want his lips pressed against yours, that you want his big, strong arms wrapped all around you. Yeah, Rachel, that's what I meant. That is exactly what I meant. Jake is cute. Not cute in a little itsy-bitsy he's so cute kind of way. He's a big guy. Not hulking big. Just like he's 2 years older than he really is. He's also smart and funny and modest. I think he likes me. We sit together on the bus sometimes. Sometimes we seem to accidentally end up near each other at assemblies or in class. He's never asked me out. I've never asked him out. Needless to say, Rachel finds all this touching, funny, and completely idiotic. I asked her once, "Do you think he's okay with me being African American and all?" She said, "Cassie, I've known Jake all my life. Believe me, he doesn't know you're black. That's how little he would care. Jake is the one guy out of 1,000 who really does care about who you are, not what you look like." So, how do I look? I asked anxiously. Like you should be singing E-I-E-I-O. You're wearing Walmart overalls with bird poop on the cuffs. You have no makeup on and there's dirt under your fingernails. That is just dirt, isn't it? I looked down at my fingernails and tried to remember. Probably dirt, possibly manure. Yeah, well, you compensate for your old MacDonald clothing sense by being pretty, very smart, very cool, and the most completely real person I've ever met. Thanks. Thanks for the last half, anyway. Jake was with his best friend, Marco. Marco and Jake were not as mismatched as Rachel and I, at least from what I knew. I don't know Marco much at all, just to say hi to. He's small, especially alongside Jake. He has fairly long, dark hair and an olive complexion and a permanently amused expression. Marco is a comedian. Not a class clown, not a guy who wants to make the teacher mad. He just seems to think the world is funny. I guess a psychologist would call it a defense mechanism. His mom died a couple years ago. Anyway, maybe that's it. Or maybe he's just funny. Anyway, if Jake likes him, he must be okay. Yeah, I don't sound too much like someone with a crush. There was a third guy with them. This kid named Tobias. He's kind of an unknown to me. He seems like he's kind of latched on to Jake. Jake is too nice to ever tell him to go away, and I could see he was trying to include Tobias in the conversation and all. But Tobias was still standing a little apart, looking a little uncomfortable, trailing a little behind. The three of them were coming out of the video game place. Marco looked like he was teasing Jake. Jake spotted us. For a moment, he had a deer-in-the-headlights look. Then he put on his nonchalance. "Hey, Rachel." "Hi, Cassie," Rachel whispered. "Can I look at him now?" "You guys going home?" Jake asked. "You shouldn't go through the construction site by yourselves. I mean, being girls and all." This was a mistake. Jake knew it as soon as the words were out of his mouth. I could see it. But it was too late. "Are you going to come and protect us, you big, strong man?" Jake started to form a word, but Rachel had him now. "You think we're helpless just because—" I cut her off. "I'd appreciate it if they did walk with us. I know you're not afraid of anything, Rachel, but I guess I am." Rachel shot me a harsh look. I was spoiling her fun. To get home from the mall, we could either go a long way around, which is the safe way, or we could cut through this abandoned construction site and hope there weren't any axe murderers hanging around there. We took the long way. 10 minutes of mostly silent walking later, Tobias said, "Hey, what's that?" I turned and looked in the direction Tobias was pointing. A streak of light, off to our right. "Meteorite?" Jake suggested. "Great," Marco muttered. "A meteorite falls out of the sky and totally misses the school." "That is so not fair." We kept walking. But I had the strangest feeling. Like going into a room, you know, where you're familiar with every stick of furniture, and it's your room. And it's just like it always has been. Only somehow, in some way that only appears as a tingling on the back of your neck, it's different. I shook it off. I had other things to focus on. Like whether Jake was ever going to even hold my hand.
Chapter 4. Tobias. Day 7. I woke up. Great. Another day. The couch I was sleeping on was saggy in the middle and smelled of cigarette smoke. But my uncle had gotten drunk and passed out on the floor in my room, so I took the couch. It was okay. At least that way I could watch TV till I fell asleep. I was wearing a t-shirt and shorts. I needed to find something to wear. My uncle doesn't do laundry, I do. So I knew exactly what I had available. A nice collection of stuff that could make me look like a complete dork or a complete lowlife. My choice. My uncle also doesn't buy a lot of stuff for me. I'm what you'd have to call low priority in his life. Half the stuff I had was stuff he'd thrown away, or else stuff I'd picked up from my aunt's attic whenever I was shuttled off to be with her for a few months. The food was better at my aunt's. She didn't pass out in my room. She had her own brand of fun. She'd work me like her own personal slave. That's how I knew what was in the attic. I cleaned it out. And she'd keep me out of school to run errands for her or just to be there in case she needed me. At least my uncle let me go to school. He'd have let me go to Australia and not cared. Not a nice feeling knowing that if you were ever kidnapped or whatever, there was no one around to bother and call the cops. But hey, that's life. It's worse for lots of kids. Marco's mom died. His dad is a wreck. Marco does everything. My mom probably died too. And my dad. I don't know. Everyone just says my mom ran off. Everyone says my dad ran off before I was born. Or sometimes they make up stories, like they both died in an accident. Sometimes I make up stories. The truth, if there ever was any truth, was lost a long time ago. Doesn't matter. I put on the least pathetic clothes I could find and headed for the bus stop. That part was okay. No major hassles at the bus stop, usually. It's not till I'm on the bus that it started. This kid named Andy and his creep sidekick, who for some reason was called Tap Tap, enjoyed kidney punching me. They'd wait till we were getting off the bus, find some way to get up behind me, and when I was all crammed in, they'd nail me once or twice in the back. I am what they call a bully magnet. I don't know why, I just am. Used to be these two other guys who had the job of torturing me. Their thing was swirlies. You know, they'd grab me by the ankles and knees and dip my head in the toilet while they flushed. Used to. This guy named Jake came into the boys' room while they were doing it. He told them to step off. That was it. But he had a way of saying it, I guess. Those two haven't bugged me since. I don't think Jake has a big reputation as a tough guy or anything. He's kind of quiet, actually. Almost shy. But there's something about him that makes you take him seriously. I hung around with him for a while. Totally lame on my part. Jake has a best friend who doesn't like me, I don't think. After a while, it was kind of obvious that I wasn't going to be part of that circle of friends. That was okay. I was still grateful. I guess Jake is who I'd like to be if I could be someone else. But there was a long list of people I'd rather be than me. I managed to avoid Andy and Tap Tap on the bus, which just meant they'd lie in wait for me some other time. Probably it would have just been better to take my beating and move on, without all the suspense of wondering when they were going to get me. Yeah, right, Tobias. That's a good way to live. I had to wait all day. 6th period. I headed for the boys' room. The boys' room is always dangerous for me, but I couldn't hold out all day. I went in, hoping against hope that a monitor would be in there. But it was me and 2 guys I didn't know, and Andy and Tap Tap. "Toby, Toby, Toby," Andy called out. "Hey, man, I missed you on the bus this morning. I thought we were friends." I felt the surge of fear, the ice in my stomach, the urgent desire to wet myself. Tap Tap moved fast to get behind me, block my escape. Tap Tap grabbed me by my shoulders from behind. Should I beg? Would begging do any good? "Why don't you guys find someone else to pick on?" I said. "Yeah, that'll work. Whining will work." And he laughed. "But you're so nice and easy," he said. "No one else is as big a wuss as you." Tap Tap joined in the laughter. "You're the man, Toby." Tap Tap shoved me suddenly forward. Off balance, I slammed into Andy. "Hey, he attacked me, Tap Tap." "Sure did. Toby, man, what's up? Are you getting all violent and stuff?" "He pushed me," Andy said in mock incredulity. Wham! The punch caught me low in my gut. Wham! Wham! I was down, twisting my legs around, pretzeling to keep from peeing. Thunk! A kick that caught me in the ribs. I rolled over, rolled onto crushed paper towels, head against one of the stall uprights. Thunk! A second kick. The pain was shocking. I was scared. They'd really hurt me this time. Oh, God, they'd really hurt me. Who was going to take me to the hospital? I lay there groaning, back wet from splashed toilet water puddles. I lay there groaning and didn't even realize my tormentors were gone till I saw the faces of the other 2 guys. The 2 guys who'd witnessed the whole scene, looking down at me. "You okay down there?" I couldn't talk. The pain, the rage, the humiliation choking me. "Your life doesn't have to be like this," one of them said. "You don't have to be a victim all the time. There's a way out, man." The other one drew a small card from his back pocket and handed it down to me. "You don't have to be all alone, man. You don't have to be anyone's punching bag." They walked away. After a while, I managed to stand up. I threw up in the toilet. I rinsed my face in the sink. I was late for class. Great. That meant a trip to Vice Principal Chapman. I cried. I was there alone. What did it matter? I cried. After a while, I splashed more water on my face, and then I looked at the card. It read, "The Sharing."
Chapter 5. Cassie. I jerked awake, eyes wide open. My covers were a mess. My sheet was twisted around my legs. My pillow was damp with sweat, but the room was cold. It had happened again. The call. Like a voice, but not a voice. Speaking without words. Images. Pictures, fuzzy, distorted, meaningless. A wide, grassy field. A glass dome. Trees with pink and blue leaves. And water. Everywhere water. It gave me the creeps. You have a serious case of the willies, I whispered to myself. I got up, went to the bathroom, drank some water, and spent 5 minutes rearranging my sheets and blankets. But I couldn't go back to bed. I was wide awake now, adrenaline awake. I could work on some homework, work on that paper. No. I pulled a pair of overalls on over my sleep shirt, stuck my bare feet into a pair of muddy, unlaced boots. Then I took the boots back off. Boots were not going to make it easy to sneak past my parents' bedroom. I tiptoed down dark stairs to the living room. The blue display on the VCR was blinking 0 hours, 0 minutes, again and again. There was a glass on the coffee table. My dad's. I picked it up and carried it to the kitchen and deposited it in the sink. That's right, Mom and Dad. I couldn't sleep, so I decided to get up at 3 a.m. and clean house. Yeah, that would work. That wouldn't seem too insane. Was that it? Was I going crazy? They say schizophrenia usually appears first during the teen years. I told my mom that once. She said, "Honey, how can anyone tell the difference between a crazy teenager and a regular teenager?" My dad had laughed, then caught himself.
Not that we're saying we expect you to be wild or anything. Let me make that perfectly clear. We're not saying it's okay.
Okay, Dad, I'll stop my wild and crazy ways. They laughed. I laughed. We all knew I was not exactly the definition of a wild and crazy girl. I told the story to Rachel. She said, "Wow, it must be cool to have your parents actually trust you. Man, that would be great if my mom trusted me like that." Because then you could get away with anything? Exactly. I smiled as I was remembering that. I opened the freezer. Hello, Ben. Hello, Jerry. No. What if Jake wasn't asking me out because of my thighs? I staggered, gripped the refrigerator door. It had hit in a wave. The voice. The soundless, wordless voice. Calling from the water. Oh, man, I really was going nuts. And it wasn't just the voice. There was the sense of what? Strangeness? Of things being wrong in some way I couldn't figure out? Not funny. Not really. What if I was actually mentally ill? The animals. That was it. I'd go check on the barn. I went out into the night, out through the kitchen door rather than the front door, because my parents were less likely to hear me. Our barn is the Wildlife Rehabilitation Clinic. Both my folks are vets. My mom works with large animals at the gardens. My dad handles the clinic, with some help from me. I guess to a lot of people the barn at night would have seemed eerie. Not to me. There were rows of cages, most full. We had muskrats and raccoons and geese and bats and foxes and deer and a forlorn eagle. All were injured or sick. Many wore bandages. Some were in one form of restraint or another, to keep them from chewing or pecking their own wounds. They smelled, I guess. Anyway, that's what Marco said when he came. No, he'd never been to the barn. Why would he have ever been to the barn? Forget it, Cassie, it's late. It's dark, you're just confused. My hands shook a little as I funneled a handful of grain into the goose's cage. She didn't need it, really. I just wanted to do something normal. How are you feeling? Huh? Yeah, I know, that wing still hurts, doesn't it? I went down the row of cages, tried not to think, tried not to believe that I was hearing things, imagining things, remembering things that had never happened. The familiarity of the barn soothed me. But within that very familiarity lay a new, unsettling sensation. I saw Jake pacing. I saw Rachel restless, Marco lolling on a bale of hay, and up there, up in the rafters, a bird. A hawk. I could almost see him. Almost. Madness! I was losing my mind. I was losing my mind.
Chapter 6 Aximili Escoruth Istil Day 10 I raced at full speed, all out, hooves flying, tail tucked down, upper body bowed, stalk eyes straight back to watch the ground that receded from me. I raced straight for the target, a bundle of sticks tied together to form an extremely crude representation of a Hork-Bajir controller. I ran, waited, reveal nothing, no subtle tells, do not give anything away. He is ready to react to the slightest clue. Would I go left or right? Stop and strike, or shoot past and tail whip him? Thwap! I shot past, caught the head of the Hork-Bajir with my blade, and watched it topple onto the ground. I was panting, gasping for air. It was my 9th attack. I was tired. Or maybe it was all in my head. Maybe it was the billions of pounds of pressure, the water that pressed down from all directions. There was very little hope left within me now. Too much time had passed. If anyone had survived, if my brother Elfengor had survived, he would have found me. The dome was still intact. It rested on the floor of one of Earth's oceans. It was at a slight angle. I noticed the incline whenever I raced across the vast, open field of grass. I was not sure how far down I was, how deep. All the instrumentation, the main computers, and so on, had been in the main section of the ship, spread out along the long corridors, the seemingly endless stalk that connected the dome to the distant engines. Likewise, all small craft, the fighters, the transports, the scout ships, anything that would fly, all left behind when the dome separated and fell, atmosphere shrieking and burning down Earth's gravity well. Life support was intact. The low-power force field that kept the transparent dome from being crushed by the ocean's pressure, all that was intact. The energy plant would last for 100 years. The grass would grow, the trees would bloom. The pond had spilled out during a temporary loss of artificial gravity, but it had mostly refilled. I could live out my life down here. Live out my life in this habitat meant to duplicate life at home. Except that I could not do that. Elfengor was probably dead. All the brave warriors with him. We had come out of zero space, expecting at most to encounter a few scattered Yirk ships, but they had been waiting. A full pool ship with its legion of bug fighters, and more dangerous still, the sleek black blade ship of Visser III. Our warriors had slaughtered the Yirks, but we had lost some fighters. And then the blade ship had appeared. Maybe Elfengor had survived, somehow, but if he had, where was he? A fighter's sensors would have located me without great difficulty. And unfortunately, the same would be true if the Yirks were still present in orbit. Sooner or later they would find me. Some taxon watching a sensor display would catch the blip of trapped air beneath the waves. Unacceptable. I was alone. without a prince or a partner. A single Andalite erreth alone in the submerged dome of a once great ship. How many light years from home? What did it matter? I had no ship. I had called out in bursts of thought-speak. I had used all my energy, all my strength, to fire bursts of thought-speak, seeking Elfangor. There had been no answer. No answer for so long. I let my momentum carry me past the decapitated stick figure, on through the pink-leafed trees, to the dome wall. It rose up at an angle. I pressed my hand against the plex. Outside, out in the alien ocean, creatures swam by. The variety was startling. I had seen perhaps 50 different species in all, large and small, some apparently harmless and some seemingly dangerous. Earth. Elfangor had said little about the place. It was not a major planet. There had been some speculation that its dominant race was on the verge of achieving spaceflight, but aside from a few hundred primitive orbital satellites, there had been no evidence. One thing was sure. The Yeerks in orbit had not been bothered by Earth-based craft. A long, gray-blue creature swam close by. It scraped the dome, just a short distance from my splayed fingers. It had fins at its sides, a triangular fin that rose from its back, a raked aerodynamic tail, and eyes that were small, black, and empty. It also had something called a mouth. Many species on the home planet did as well, but this mouth seemed designed as a weapon. There were several rows of jagged triangular teeth. The fish swam away into the murk. Even when Earth's sun was high in the sky, the light down here was dim, rippling, green-blue. During planetary night, the dome was so dark that I could stand and watch the faint phosphorescence of passing creatures, like slow comets crossing my personal sky. Heximile, you have to decide, I told myself. I could stay in the dome and wait, a week, a month, a year, till the Earthers or the Yeerks spotted me. Or I could venture out of the dome. I had the morphing power. If I could acquire one of these passing creatures, I could leave, reach some shore, demorph, and look to make a life among the aliens. You have to decide, stay or go, wait or leave. I did not want to be afraid, but I was. I had to admit that. The morphing power is only good for 2 hours at a time. More than that, and you are trapped. How far was the shore? How hostile were the inhabitants? Could I hope to survive? The Earthers might be savages. There might be diseases, predators. And there was the very real possibility that the Yeerks were already there in force. You have to decide, I told myself again. But not yet. I headed back toward the target. I stopped still and stared. The head was back in place, hadn't I? I had. I had seen the head fall. Impossible. Decide soon, I told myself. The isolation is having psychological effects.
Chapter 7. Tobias. Day 21. Line up on the cue ball, then draw the line back through your cue and forward through the ball you're trying to hit, then onto the pocket, right? He said right a lot. It's all about angles. Pool is geometry, a series of collisions, all at precise angles. His name was Bill. He was a high school guy, older than me, obviously. He was my guide. That's what they call it. When you attend your second meeting of the sharing, they assign you a guide. Someone to answer your questions, someone to hang with you, talk to you. At first I thought it was some kind of pity thing. You know, that Tobias kid is such a loser, we better put someone with him. But everyone gets a guide at their second meeting. A guide is a full member of the sharing. I'm still not sure what that means, a full member. Bill is a little vague about it. What he's not vague about is pool. They have 2 tables in the back of the meeting hall. He has his favorite. I gripped the cue, aimed, tried to see the angles, tried to see the impacts, Q-tip on cue ball on 7-ball, 7-ball on bumper. Okay, now relax into it, Bill said. You want to aim like your life depended on it. Then relax like it doesn't really matter, and let your shoulder and arm and hand and eye all work together. I tried to relax. Thunk! The cue ball rolled, hit the 7-ball that hit the bumper, and then curved away from the pocket. Sorry, I said. What do you mean, sorry? You were off by 2%, maybe. You're getting better. You have an eye for this. You can think in 3 dimensions. That's good. You wait. When you become a full member, you'll be thinking in 4 dimensions. 5. N-dimensional space. I had no idea what he was talking about, but I felt my face redden. Pleasure. His compliment may have been sincere or not. I wasn't sure. But I'd take it for what it was worth. There hadn't been all that many compliments in my life. Take the next shot, he said. I want to see how you handle it. The assumption that I would someday become a full member of the sharing, that was strange. I'd only attended 2 meetings. The first time I just kind of wandered around lost, feeling like a dork. I filled out some form with my name and address and social security number and all. The form asked me some personal questions, too. Nothing too personal, but enough to make me uneasy. But at the same time, even while I was feeling lost, no one made me feel bad. They were kind of welcoming, like me showing up was a cool thing. They didn't press me, didn't try to sell me anything. It just kind of let me hang out, watch some kids playing video games, watch other older guys playing basketball out back of the building on a half-court. When the first meeting was over, this college guy or whatever, came up and shook my hand and asked me personally to come back. I was back, and now I had Bill teaching me to shoot pool. I snapped the shot. Cue, hit cue ball, hit bumper. My ball rolled into the pocket. Ah! I yelled, way too excited. Bill clapped his hand on my back and gave my shoulder a squeeze. Cool! Good job, Tobias! That was not an easy shot. We played pool some more till at last some other guys came up and jokingly demanded the table. No problem, Bill said. My boy Tobias here is getting too good for me already. It wasn't true, but I was better. I never played pool before, I said. Well, each of us has talents and abilities hidden within us, Bill said. Who knows what you can do, Tobias? Have you ever had a chance to find out? That's what the sharing is all about, man. The whole point is we all help each other to become the best people we can become. I wanted to ask, why? Why would any bunch of people want to get together to help me play pool or whatever? I mean, what did they get out of it? But that was just me being cynical. That was me thinking the whole world was like my uncle. It was possible that some people were just nice, right? There was a chime, a ringing bell, not too loud, but insistent. Bill groaned. Time for the sit-down, he said. What's a sit-down? That's just what I call it. Every couple of meetings or so, they have us all get together, talk to us about stuff. Like what? You know, like the purpose of the sharing and our philosophy and all. He winced. I shouldn't complain. I mean, the sharing has totally turned my life around. Yeah? Yeah. Like how? He shrugged and started us toward the main meeting room. I used to be messed up, man. My folks had a really bad divorce, you know? It was this total mess. Fighting and yelling and lawyers trying to drag me and my sister one way or the other. Sick. I nodded like I understood. Anyway, I got kind of weird up behind all that. Depressed or whatever. Thinking maybe I didn't want to go on living. But the sharing took me out of all that. Yeah? He spread his hands wide and smiled. Not depressed anymore, right? I'm moving on, dealing with it. Now I have my own plan for the future, you know? Get past all the stuff, get on with my own life, right? Right. We sat down on folding chairs. There must have been about 40 or 50 people there. Kids, older people, white and black and Asian, people in expensive clothes and people more like me. Cool kids, nerds, jocks, all sitting together, talking, like age or race or whatever didn't matter. I spotted someone I hadn't noticed before. Jake. He was sitting 2 aisles up next to his brother Tom. I was surprised. That guy up there, I pointed. Is he a member? Who, Tom? Yeah, Tom is a very senior full member. I hadn't been talking about Tom, but the information surprised me. You mean like a senior kid member? Bill smiled. There's no such thing as old or young, not in the sharing. We don't draw lines like that. I watched the back of Jake's head as a speaker mounted 2 steps to a low stage. I watched him as the speaker talked to us about how the lonely individual in society had been overemphasized in our culture. There was no true achievement unless you were part of something greater. You had to serve in order to achieve. You had to join with a larger reality. That's why we are called the sharing, the speaker said. Together we achieve happiness, fulfillment, meaning. Together, holding each other up, supporting each other, working together to overcome individual weakness, individual failing and pain and hurt. It sounded good, I guess. I kept watching Jake. I don't know why. I don't think he knew I was there. I guess it was pathetic, but I thought that if he was a member and I was a member, somehow, some way, stupid thought, lame idea, but somehow I could become him, and not me. Have his life, and not mine.
Chapter 8. Marco. Day 24. You know, you should go out with me, I said. For a full 5 seconds, Rachel didn't say anything. She just sort of narrowed her eyes and stared straight ahead. I grinned. She was trapped. Couldn't get away. We were on a field trip to the Natural History Museum. We'd already looked at the big stuffed elephant. We'd looked at the diorama showing early man cooking barbecue out with the lions. We gaped up at the suspended fiberglass whales. Now we were in the theater, where they were about to show us an IMAX film entitled DNA, Miracle Molecule, or some such thing. It was narrated by Paul Schaefer from Letterman. Weird. The screen was about the size of an old drive-in theater screen, but it was so close I could practically reach out and touch it. So anyway, we were in the seats next to each other, me and Rachel. Beside her was one of her friends, Melissa Chapman, daughter of the vice principal. The theater was totally full. Rachel was trapped. I don't think so, she said at last. Is it because I'm roughly 3 feet shorter than you? No answer. Stoic stare. Is it that you think I'm cuter than you? Yeah, that would be it. On screen, Paul Schaefer was saying, DNA is a fabulous molecule. An electron microscope slide appeared, showing a DNA molecule as long as a train. You know, girls love a guy with a sense of humor. Yeah, if he's Leonardo DiCaprio. Adam Sandler, not so much. Despite myself, I laughed. She could throw it back at me. I liked that. Still, we should go out, do a movie, eat some burgers. I could make you laugh. Actually, I think the mere memory of that suggestion will supply me with plenty of laughter. She was fast, sharper than I thought. I'd always assumed she was just this total babe. But she was cool. Funny. Wow, fantastic looks and she was funny? How often does that happen? You know, I could supply references, Rachel. Plenty of females have enjoyed the company of Marco the Magnificent. Females? What species? I barked out a laugh and got a loud shush from a row back. I guess someone back there really cared what was happening to the 5-story green and red amoeba pulsating behind Paul's bald head. I shot a look at Rachel. Was that a faint shadow of a tiny, possibly imaginary smile I saw on her perfect lips? Or was it just a trick of the amoeba light? I fell silent. Wait. Paul never gets credit for being as funny as he is, she said. Ha! She was enjoying talking to me. She started it up again. Ha! Well. What would Jake say if I started going out with his cousin? He was my best friend, had been forever. He'd always been there for me. He was the one guy in the world I could absolutely count on. So, if he didn't approve of me and Rachel, hey, it would make me real sad to say bye-bye, Jake. Ha! She liked me. Or at least my sense of humor. No problemo. Then, Paul Schaefer's head flickered and melted, erupting in brown goo that merged with what I believe was an invertebrate. Aw, man! The film had caught and burned. The house lights came up. Now we'll never know what happened, I complained. Did Dave ever make a cameo appearance? Or at least Biff Henderson? We all stood up. The kids all managed to control their disappointment. We filed outside, out into the brighter light of the museum proper. I had to struggle to stay up with Rachel. Somehow, and don't ask me to explain it, she had an ability to move easily and quickly through a crowd without ever touching anyone, or being touched in return, like she was surrounded by a force field. But I stayed up with her, and by amazingly good luck, Melissa made a girls' room run. By herself. Without Rachel, which is not something you see very often, a pretty girl left vulnerable without some member of her girl gang around to fend off losers. So, what do you think? I asked Rachel. Up close, it was hard to ignore the fact that I was looking almost directly up at her, while she was looking at the top of my head. I think many things, she said cryptically. I mean about... My mouth stopped moving. My throat seized up. I stared, heart pounding on no oxygen, stared. Pushed Rachel aside when she got in the way. It's her, I said. I was aware that my voice had cracked. I knew I looked like an idiot. Didn't care. I was far away. I was in some frozen universe, watching what could not possibly be. Who? Rachel snapped. Mom, I whispered. Your mom? So go say hi. I shook my head slowly coming out of my paralyzed trance. She had appeared, simply appeared, like materializing out of the air, like she'd been transported down from the Star Trek universe. She was wearing a blonde wig, but I wasn't wrong. It was her. She looked shocked, confused, lost, angry, scared. Then, she was moving away, quickly, heading for the escalator. Her back was to me. My mom! My mom! I have to catch her! Your mom? Isn't she? Mom! Mom! I yelled. I took off running like an idiot, yelling and running.
Chapter 9. Facsimile. It took a great deal of patience, days of patience. I waited hour after long hour, hope rising and falling, watching the airlock through the transparent bulkhead. The big creatures would come toward the open airlock, nearer, but never all the way in. The airlock was big enough to accommodate 4 space-suited Andalites. That was its original function, to allow technicians to access the outer surface of the dome. The only creatures that came into the airlock were smaller, finned creatures. These did not seem to possess any natural weapons. Unless, somehow, their fins were far more formidable than they appeared. In my weeks under the alien ocean, I had learned one thing. Earth creatures could be fiercely predatory. The large ate the small. In this environment, there was not much point in being small and weak. I could afford to wait for a chance to acquire something strong and fast enough, I hoped, to make it safely to the nearest shore, wherever that might be. So I waited and invented names for the various creatures who ignored the open cave of the airlock. Big Mouth, Runny Eyes, Swimming Bird, and the creature I was after, Blue Blade. This creature seemed to be composed of triangles. Triangular tail, triangular fins, triangular teeth. Its entire body reminded me of a long, flattened triangle. It was blue, the blue-gray of wet steel, not so far different from my own color. 3 days I had waited and waited to spring my trap. Not that I had anything better to do. I exercised. I conjured up absurd scenarios of how Elfangor was alive, had crash-landed among the aliens, and even now was forming an effective guerrilla organization to fight the Yeerks. If anyone could do it, Elfangor could. But I knew he was dead. Knew it. Ah! I slapped the panel. The door materialized. The creature was trapped. Now what? In order to acquire the creature's DNA, I had to physically touch him. He did not look as if he would enjoy being touched. He had to be alive at the moment of acquisition. What if the removal of water killed him instantly? I instructed the airlock computer to draw off 90% of the water. This took a few minutes. When it was done, the creature was still able to move, but only in 2 dimensions. His dorsal fin and part of his back were exposed to the air. His belly scraped the floor. He kept moving, restless. Afraid? Impossible to say. Airlock computer, create a force field to contain the water and prevent it spilling into the outer chamber. Allow me to enter the airlock. The computer erected a force field just 3 feet high, just enough to hold in the water and the creature. Above that 3-foot wall of energy was open space. I could easily leap over. However, leaping back out would be harder. The water would be halfway up my side, submerging my legs. I waited, watched, timed the creature's movements, leaped. I flew over the invisible wall, splashed into the water. My hooves slipped. I sagged down into the water. The creature whipped toward me, lightning quick. It surged at me. I stuck out my right hand and pressed its snout. Acquisition usually creates a trance in the acquired creature. Maybe it would work with this creature. Eventually, the monster jerked its head, broke contact, swam away, turned in a flash, and arced toward me. Flap! I hit it, flat-bladed, on the snout. It turned away, but came right back, and now its mouth was open in a grin of triangular teeth. Flap! I hit it again, and jumped aside a split second before it could bite my front left leg. Yah! I leaped clear out of the pool and sprawled clumsily on the floor. Water drained off me. Blood, too. Mine. The creature had swiped my haunch with a fin I now realized was quite sharp. The creature was fast, aggressive, not easily discouraged. Perfect for my purpose. Assuming I lived long enough to worry about my purpose. Computer, form a force field that will constrict the creature into a narrow rectangular space. The water receded from both side walls. The creature slammed into the force field, retreated, tried to turn, and suddenly could not. The blue blade was now held within what amounted to a very narrow tank. There was dry floor on either side of him. You might have thought of this earlier, Hexemily, I chided myself. I had long since accepted the notion of solipsistic conversation. It was part of a general psychological decay. On at least 3 occasions I had seen things that were almost certainly not real. Either that or the structure of time itself was different on Earth. I jumped into the dry space. The creature lay sullen. The vertical gashes behind his mouth worked. Open, close, open, close. The one eye on this side glared at me. I reached and touched the creature's skin. I pulled away, surprised. It was rough-textured. I could have abraded the skin from my hand. I touched him again and focused, as we are trained to do when acquiring DNA. Sharp teeth, sharp fins, speed, aggression, and armored skin. I didn't know how dangerous Earth's oceans might be, but I felt this creature would be safe in them.